Hello, my dear viewers. Today is March 2nd and today the first material will not be a review of the situation at the front. I haven't had time to process a lot of information in the last few hours. There is some information, but I will provide that in the next review. Today and in the future I want to do a morning review of what is happening around the conflict in Ukraine. One of the most important questions is, which countries of the world supported Russia, and which did not, because this issue is, in fact, a cornerstone for Ukraine. Yes, not only for Ukraine, for Russia it is no less important, of course, because in Ukraine, for some reason, there is an opinion that the whole world is with us. And now we will sort it out. Who is this whole world and how long is it with them? It is obvious that the USA, Canada and most European countries are really with Ukraine, at least in words. They are definitely all for her. And some countries, for example Hungary, express a twofold position. On the one hand, they are not against the sanctions of the European Union, and on the other hand, Hungary has set a firm no to the issue of arms supplies to Ukraine. Moreover, Hungary does not even pass through its territory supplies for Ukraine. Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina also took a special position, because the position of the Serbian population is clear and unambiguous. They are for Russia. Everything is clear with the United States and Europe, as well as with Japan and Australia, that is, the closest political partners of the United States. And after that comes silence. All other significant countries have expressed their support for Russia in one form or another. First of all, this is clearly seen in the example of Latin America, where Brazil and Argentina and Mexico said together yesterday that they would not support sanctions against Russia. It is clear that in addition to Colombia and some other countries, but the main economically developed countries of the region have said that they will not support sanctions against Russia. And South Africa also expressed the same position, the only country in Africa that has any political weight. And I forgot, Egypt is also against it. It is clear why, because Egypt understands perfectly well that if he says for, the Russian tourists will not come to Egypt. And Turkey also said that it is against sanctions against Russia. Accordingly, all countries that focus on Turkey are also against it. Even Israel's position on this issue looks very twofold. Israel really does not want to quarrel with Russia, and it is clear that it will maneuver until the very last moment. After all, the real knife in the back for the Ukrainian leadership was the murder of an Israeli citizen by Ukrainian nationalists while trying to evacuate him. Let me remind you that the so-called self-defense of Ukraine confused an Israeli citizen with the Russian fighter Kadyrov and shot him as a Russian saboteur. Also, in my opinion, from the significant countries of the Middle East, no one spoke in favor of sanctions against Russia. The United Arab Emirates was against it, Saudi Arabia was against it. Moreover, Saudi Arabia announced that it would strictly adhere to the OPEC Plus deal, although the Americans asked them very much to increase production. And it is clear that Iran stands for Russia. That is, the axis that Russia created in the Middle East is working, and it works clearly like a clock. India also did not support sanctions against Russia, but yesterday it was reported that the Indian bank is considering suspending the servicing of some Russian banks. But so far the question is not completely clear. At the state level, India says it is against sanctions. And it is clear that China's position is clear and unambiguous. China is Russia's ally. But an even more interesting situation has developed in the post-Soviet space. It is clear with the Baltic countries. They are of course for, but with the rest, not everything is clear. The position of the countries that are members of the Eurasian Economic Union and the Collective Security Treaty Organization is obvious. All of them unanimously supported Russia. But the sanctions against Russia were not supported by two countries that Ukraine was counting on, Moldova and even Georgia. Even Georgia did not support Ukraine in announcing sanctions against Russia. And in Moldova, let me remind you, today there is a pro-European government. That is, it turns out that on the territory of the former Soviet Union, no country except the Baltic states, 3 small Baltic Limitrovs, supported sanctions against Russia. Even those countries that Ukraine counted on very much, Moldova and Georgia. Hence, a logical question arises. Who is the whole world with? And is the whole world the United States and most of Europe, which by population is less than 20% of the world's population, and by economic potential is less than half of the economic potential of the whole world? Again, taking into account the fact that this includes the so-called fake GDP, which, in fact, exists only on paper. That is, we see that Russia has prepared very well for the war on the diplomatic front. Her alliances and her allies are working. And it all says that all countries of the world perfectly understand what kind of struggle has unfolded in Ukraine today. This is not a struggle between Ukraine and Russia, of course not. This is the struggle of the USA and Russia and China for the destruction of the world where the Anglo-Saxon countries are the leaders. Well, therefore, it is understandable why most of the countries of the world that are not part of this European and North American bloc wish victory to China and Russia in this war. That is, in fact, I have to disappoint Mr. Zelensky and the Ukrainian nationalists who believe that the whole world is with us. Not the whole world is with you. On the contrary, most of the world is not with you. Even Moldova and Georgia were not with you. That's what I wanted to say in this issue. That's all I have on this topic so far. Goodbye. Wait for a review of the situation on the front. I think it will be released around noon or at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, see you again.